Well, I said I was going to have a graphic up for an episode like this, but let's start up the rumor mill. The Toronto Blue Jays are probably going to need to look for a trade if they can't secure Alex Bregman or Pete Alonso. What trades are possible?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Just before we get into today's episode, just some information, news around the Pete Alonso situation. He did sign a 2-year deal with the Mets worth $54 million. So we'll send you back to the show. Keep that in the back of your mind as you're listening to what some of these trade possibilities could look like.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube or the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Friday, everybody. We made it. End of the week. Here we go, and it's a trade episode. First of all, I'm Braden Wasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Wasco. Carter First, too. Make sure you guys do go and follow us there. As well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays as well. If you're new here to YouTube or you're listening anywhere else, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's free to do so. You might as well. Also, you'll be able to get live streams, podcasts, videos, the shorts now that we're going to get back into when the season gets rolling underway. You might see a few before then. But make sure you do hit that subscribe button. And we notice a lot of you guys aren't that watch these videos, so you might as well if you're watching a bunch of the videos anyway. It really means a lot to us. As well, Discord link is down in the description. You guys can join that chat, Blue Jays, with us whenever you want, any time of day. Yeah, a lot to get into. A lot to get into, Carter. So I want to start it here. So we had, and this is what sort of sparked everything. We knew that we were probably going to have to talk some trades, depending on what happens with Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman, right? Because if they don't sign, the Blue Jays still probably are looking to add a bat or two to this lineup. Most likely just one, but we got an interesting one. I'm going to throw it by you. I don't think you've seen it yet, and I want your just immediate reactions. What do you think? How do you feel about this one? Then we'll get into a little bit of the rumors that have been going around the Padres. What's going to happen with that organization? Get into a couple trades that me and you have thought up in the second segment, and ones that could possibly have some lasting effects. There's been some rumors on some other guys, so we've added those into our trades. And then some more fan trades that we've heard sort of just around social media, other people's ideas. We'll get into them and let you guys know how we feel about them. As always, make sure you guys comment down below and let us know how you feel about any of these trades. If you think any of them are realistic, if you like them, if you don't like them, please drop a comment and let us know. Let's start here, Carter. This was a commenter on our podcast that dropped this and said, what about this trade? As the Padres are looking to unload some guys, as everybody knows, sort of has been getting that feeling, like, I'll let you get more into that right away. This is the trade. And then I'll read the comments so that, there's a little bit, the Padres seem like anyone is available for the trade. So how about Davis Schneider, Addison Barger, and Nathan Lucas for, drumroll please, Fernando Tatis Jr. Go ahead.
If the Toronto Blue Jays got offered that from the San Diego Padres, that is the easiest accept button ever. You are hammering it a million times out of a million. You're probably going to your buddy and saying, what are the San Diego Padres doing? That would be an absolute steal, one of the worst trades in MLB history, unfortunately. If that did happen, is it realistic? Absolutely not. Davis Schneider hit like 200 last year, had like a 600 OPS. Much you love Davis Schneider. I like Davis Schneider on this podcast. Not going to be a centerpiece of a trade. Addison Barger had a 600 OPS last year, cannot defend whatsoever. Is that guy going to be traded for Fernando Tatis, one of the better, if not top 5 right fielder in all of baseball? And then Nathan Lucas, who's 30 years old. It's not going to happen, unfortunately. As much as I would love for that to happen, I would love to get Fernando Tatis on this Toronto Blue Jays team. You move Santander to that DH spot. You have Fernando Tatis playing in right field. You have a lineup of, like, say, for example, Tatis. Then you got Vladdy, Bo Bichette's in there. Anthony Santander's in there. Yes, that would be awesome in theory. But is that realistic? Is that going to happen? Absolutely not. The San Diego Padres might be trying to trade some of their talent, but it would not happen for that from the Toronto Blue Jays.
So, okay, I'm just going to throw a quick scenario and you just tell me yes or no. If they added in Ricky Tiedemann and Orelvis Martinez, does that deal happen?
It's more of a talking point for sure. I think it depends that if how well and how much they're shopping Fernando Tatis. We talked about
Probably
the
not a
Toronto Blue
lot.
Jays. You wouldn't think so. You would think that there would be other teams and other players specifically that they would be shopping rather than Fernando Tatis, probably the best player on the roster. But when you look at the Toronto Blue Jays system, we always talk about this. Toronto Blue Jays prospect system compared to other prospects around the league. Toronto Blue Jays prospect system is not that good compared to the Boston Red Sox, compared to the Baltimore Orioles, compared to the Houston Astros. So many teams, the Los Angeles Dodgers, have way better prospect systems than the Toronto Blue Jays. So if they were planning on trading Fernando Tatis, they would be shopping him to every single team in the league. They'd be trying to get the biggest haul possible back for a guy like Fernando Tatis. Does Aroldis Martinez, Ricky Tiedemann, and then those three listed get it done? I don't know if that necessarily gets it done. It has to, again, it would depend on what other teams are offering for Fernando Tatis and just all the question marks regarding Ricky Tiedemann. He's not going to be pitching in 2025. Is that even a possible trade candidate for the San Diego Padres? Probably not. So I'm going to say no, that probably doesn't even get it done. I think they'd still have to add more, probably substitute Ricky Tiedemann out for maybe an Arjun Namala type piece. It would take a lot for the San Diego Padres to move on from Fernando Tatis. But saying that, they are in this interesting position where we have seen a ton of reports coming out that the San Diego Padres are looking to cut some cap space. They are looking to cut some of their major contracts. When you have guys like Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis, Xander Bogaerts, Jake Cronenworth is making $80 million. And you have some of these contracts that are be paying out at this value. They're looking to move on from some of these major contracts and just some of these one-year deals, for example, as well. We talked about Michael King in an episode before. Dylan Cease, actively seeing reports a ton about him on the trade market. Luis Arias is another player. So it looks like the San Diego Padres might be having a little bit of a fire sale. Saying that, though, they're not going to give Fernando Tatis for my half-eaten cheeseburger and the napkin that I had in that bag. They're still going to want a pretty good return for some of these players. But it would be interesting for Ross Atkins to give the San Diego Padres a call and kind of see where their head is at with some of their superstars.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the Blue Jays, there are a lot of options in which the Blue Jays could go down the route of trading for a Padre. It's just, there's a lot to think about when it comes to a trade involving the Padres, right? It's how much salary are you taking on? Positional needs. What does this team need now that the Anthony Santander, Max Scherzer, Jeff Hoffman, all these deals are now in place? Where does that player fit into the lineup? There's a lot that always goes into making a trade. And right now, you're right. If you're not getting a great player or a good player, are you just going to trade for anybody to throw them at an open position that maybe one of, like, what do we have? One open position right now? Two, I guess, if you count the DH spot. But it's really third base and DH are the only two viable positions. That's a big trade, probably a big trade target for this Toronto Blue Jays team. So do the Padres have in their organization right now somebody that would come in and fill that? Obviously, Manny Machado, blah, blah, blah. But, that contract is insane. So will the Blue Jays want to take on a $300 million contract? I don't think so. They're not willing to pay Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette their money. So, again, with the Padres, would it be a good idea to target that team that's looking like they want to sell some guys off? Yes. But at the end of the day, it's all hearsay until something gets pen to paper, right?
Yeah, and I have a quote from an MLB insider, Harold Reynolds, that talked about a possibility of a Fernando Tatis trade. And he goes on to say, if the Jays were serious about going to trade for that superstar, young players such as Aroldis Martinez, who I think was rated the number 2 prospect in the Toronto Blue Jays system, Ricky Tiedemann, who I think was number 3, and Arjun Namala, who was number 1, who could be all in the cards. So you wouldn't be trading a David Schneider, who's a fringe MLB player at this point of his career, Addison Barger, who me and you aren't necessarily very high on. Maybe other teams are. That is a guy you could shop around for. That's been in a lot of our trade rumors and mock trades that we have made up. And then Nathan Lucas, again, unless you're trading him to, I don't know, like a Chicago White Sox or a Miami Marlins or a team that, again, is kind of going through that rebuilding phase. Probably not going to get a lot for Nathan Lucas, even if he is in a throw-in. I don't think that necessarily kind of turns the needle for a lot of these teams. So more realistically, I don't think Fernando Tatis would be the first option for the San Diego Padres to trade. I don't think he'd be the second option, the third option, the fourth option. I think it would take a whole lot. It would take a mind-blowing offer to get a guy like Fernando Tatis off the San Diego Padres. More realistically, what the Toronto Blue Jays could be looking at is Luis Arias is a free agent after 2025. Michael King is a free agent after 2025. Dylan Cease is a free agent after 2025. I think those three players are way more realistic to target for opposing teams, whether it's the Blue Jays, whether it's, again, the Dodgers would probably be in on them, unfortunately, but would the Padres want to trade to a division rival? Probably not. So you got to hope in that scenario that the Dodgers wouldn't get any better at the Padres' expense. Out of those three players, the best fit for the Toronto Blue Jays after this Max Scherzer signing, as much as Dylan Cease would probably be the best player to trade for, Luis Arias kind of makes a lot of sense when you think about it. The Toronto Blue Jays have a glaring need in the batting order, and they need a leadoff hitter. What is Luis Arias good at? He's good at getting contact. He's good at getting on base, and he's good at hitting slap singles. You can get guys on for Anthony Santander, Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That is going to be those guys that are doing damage in your lineup. And with him being on a one-year deal, is it going to take those top-end prospects, those Orelvis Martinez's, those Ricky Tiedemanns, those Trey Savages? Maybe it might take one of them. It kind of depends on what the market is like for Luis Arias, if there's other teams in on him, if he's gaining a lot of interest from other teams around the league. Not the greatest defender. And when you look at it from a defensive perspective, maybe you would DH Luis Arias when you have Andres Gimenez starting at second base. He's not going to play shortstop with Bo Bichette there. I don't think Luis Arias is necessarily a third baseman, so maybe that is your DH going into the 2025 season. But I think Luis Arias, out of all of these players, maybe the worst of the three out of Michael King and Dylan Cease, would make a lot of sense in Toronto Blue Jays land with how desperate they need a leadoff hitter.
Yeah, and to that point, I think me and you and some fans think that the leadoff spot is a spot that needs to be filled. But a little bit of me doesn't necessarily believe that the organization feels that leadoff spot is a spot that needs to be filled. So I don't necessarily know if Luis Arias would be even a guy on the mind of this organization, even though me and you could probably agree that is a perfect spot for him to land. So at the end of the day, again, it's all about the fit. It's how the organization feels, where they think their team is at, where they think their team could get with a trade. And I keep going back to the same thing, and it's the fact that a trade has to work out for not just each organization's batting lineup, how the contracts fit, money. There are a million things that all go into each specific trade. And as much as I agree with the Luis Arias leadoff hitting, I think he is a great a contact hitter that can rope singles. I think he would be perfect in that scenario. I think he's not a guy that this team would bring in to be a DH. And I don't necessarily know they would DH their leadoff guy. I feel that they would go and more look for a trade either as a specific DH, like we talked about a Pete Alonso before, obviously everything's been going on, or somebody else, or somebody that could fill that third base role. Otherwise, I don't necessarily see a trade, and I don't necessarily see a Padres trade specifically happening right now, especially after the Max Scherzer signing.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense now to go and get like a Dylan Cease and Michael King. Do they make this team better for 2025? Absolutely. Dylan Cease, if he's in this rotation, he's probably your number one guy right off the bat. Michael King, as I said, would probably be your number two guy. I'm very high on Michael King after what he did to the Toronto Blue Jays in his short tenure with the New York Yankees. But one guy you kind of talked about the third base being one of the priorities. You could look at Manny Machado. I think the glaring thing that turns this organization away from Manny Machado is the value of his contract and how long he is still under contract. This contract goes through 2033. So that is a major commitment to make to a guy like Manny Machado. And again, is this team going to be competitive through that window of 2027 to 2033? It's a big pay raise that you're looking to add to this luxury tax. If you were going to be on a guy like Manny Machado, again, that does fill a massive need of your third base role. But I'm not too inclined to think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to make this massive of a splash and make this big of a financial commitment to a guy like Manny Machado, who is already 30 years old.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I don't have much else to say on the Padres because I just feel like this is something not a fit for the Toronto Blue Jays this year. As much as there are guys I would love on the team, just taking everything into consideration, I don't know if there's a move to be made now. But, Carter, me and you have each come up with a trade that could possibly spark some heat in Toronto Blue Jays land, that could get the wheels turning for all the fans and maybe the organization. A couple guys, my guy specifically, I know we've had comments about. So tune in. Make sure you guys stick around. We're going to take a quick break. Come back with our trades. Let us know how you think about everything we're talking about today. It is a big topic when it comes down to trades. If you guys have trade ideas, also let us know in the comments. And if you're looking through the comments, you see somebody else's trade you like, give them a thumbs up or another comment saying I like this trade. Get the conversation rolling. We'll be right back.
Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best way to play daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions of winnings awarded, Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get into the action. Here's how it works. You can pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game, the Super Bowl, where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Obviously, it's a football game. He's going to throw more than 1 yard. It's pretty much a guarantee. Compare that with one more correct pick and you're cashing out. Again, I said this on the Wednesday episode. I still feel this on the Friday episode. I do not want the Chiefs to three-peat. However, I'm going to kind of hedge my bets in a sense. I'm going to go on a bunch of overs, more thans for the Kansas City Chiefs. So in case they do win, I'm going to make some money. And if they lose, I will be happy that the Eagles won and the Chiefs did not break a record in the three-peat. So I have more than Xavier Worthy, 57.5 receiving yards, more than 20 and 22.5 rushing yards for Isaiah Pacheco, and it's the Super Bowl. I think Kelsey does get in the end zone, so I have him more than half a touchdown. One of the things I love most about Prize Picks is the fast and safe withdrawals. When I win, my cash is in my account in as little as 15 minutes, and it's very easy to take out of my account and throw it in different bank accounts if I want to throw more picks on Prize Picks, if I want to just use it in any area of my life. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Carter, my man, we both put together some good trade ideas. I hope we'll see what you guys think in the comment section. If you don't mind, I sort of want to kick things off here. I don't know how you'll feel about this. I know the guy that I'm trading for you'll like, and I'll give a reasoning behind everything. The player I am trading for will be from the White Sox, Luis Robert Jr., a player that is on a value contract right now, 6 years, $50 million, and a 26-27 team option. Again, this would be probably a fielder that would slot in either for Anthony Santander or George Springer. And it might be a little bit of a rotation where some of them get to DH. And that would then fill the DH spot inadvertently because you get a better fielder than probably Anthony Santander. And he can focus more on his bat, which is why we paid him some money to come here and hit home runs. So I like Luis Robert Jr., and what I think this team would have to give up is definitely a prospect, and a prospect me and you both sort of like, and that would, for me, be Charles McAdoo. And why I think they would give him up is a still young guy, still a prospect, probably what the White Sox would be looking for in their, rebuild, come up, everything. So I think he would fit that organization well. There would probably have to be another piece, maybe some sort of MLB talent. I could see also Addison Barger being moved in this trade as well, or another sort of low-tier prospect. But Carter, what do you think about that trade?
Unfortunately, I kind of think it's like the Tatis for David Schneider and Addison Barger trade. I think you're going to have to give up way more for a guy like Luis Robert Jr., even coming off of a bad season. Guy had a 650 OPS, but you're playing with the Chicago White Sox. Like you said, he's on one of the best contract values in the entire MLB. I think you can get a whole lot more for a guy like Luis Robert Jr. And on the same fence, I don't think you sell this guy when he's on that good of a contract and just had a down year. You're not selling low on a guy like Luis Robert Jr. And if they were to make this guy available, I think the Toronto Blue Jays get outbid once again. I don't necessarily see Ross Atkins going out, giving up a guy like Elvis Martinez, a guy like Trey Savage, a guy like Ricky Tiedemann. I think that is really lowballing what the Chicago White Sox could get for a guy like Luis Robert Jr.
You know what? I sort of agree, but also there was an article and comments made by insider Jacob Mounts that stated that the Toronto Blue Jays could be interested in a trade with the Chicago White Sox, which could involve Luis Robert Jr., and that the market is set fairly low on a player as Luis Robert Jr., and the Blue Jays could get him for not next to nothing, but a lower value than maybe everyone thought. So that was an article that came out a little bit ago now that I've sort of been holding in my back pocket for a chance to talk trades. So maybe Charles McAdoo isn't the guy. Maybe you're right. Maybe they would need a slight higher prospect or a guy with a little bit more upside. But I could see a guy like Charles McAdoo being interesting to a team like the Chicago White Sox, a guy that can hit for power that will come in and bring sort of a splash when he does make his MLB appearance. So again, that's from an insider. How much validity does it have? Who knows? The picks and the players, or the players and the prospects were thrown in by me. So tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Carter, let's hear from you. What do you got for us today?
So I have a guy that has been linked to the Toronto Blue Jays before, especially regarding last offseason. There is still a glaring need for a third base. As much as I love Ernie Clement, it can be an upgraded position. Obviously, you are limited with Ernie Clement's bat, as good as he is defensively. This guy's good defensively and provides a little bit more power from this third base spot. And it's Ryan McMahon from the Colorado Rockies. For me, this makes a lot of sense. The Colorado Rockies still rebuilding. This guy has 3 more years left on his contract, so they could get a pretty decent price for a guy like Ryan McMahon. Again, very good defensively. Does provide a little bit more power, obviously, than Ernie Clement would be a middle of the order hitter. And for this guy, I have Addison Barger going the other way, kind of get a more MLB ready player for the Colorado Rockies. Probably would see the field immediately with their current situation, especially if they do trade Ryan McMahon. So that would kind of be, I guess, the main piece of this trade. But I also have Alan Rodin in this trade, a 12th rated prospect from the Toronto Blue Jays last season. And I also have Josh Kasevich with an influx of middle infielders. This is the shortstop who was rated number 9 on last year's prospect ranking. Still waiting for the 2025 rankings to come out. So you get Addison Barger, who's that more MLB ready piece. Then they get 2 more middle tier prospects for a guy like Ryan McMahon, who again immediately bolsters that third base defensive position, only by a little bit with Ernie Clement being there, but you get way more upside with the bat and just adding to the offensive capability in this Toronto Blue Jays lineup.
Yeah, and Carter, I like Ryan McMahon. My only issue is sort of to the same thing that you said is what are these teams willing to take for their players that they have signed? And yes, Ryan McMahon is not on the same level as a guy like Luis Robert Jr. or Fernando Tatis, for goodness sakes. I don't think Addison Barger gets much done, to be honest with you. That's why I've sort of threw him in as an extra in my. I don't think Addison Barger really moves the needle for many teams right now, and I don't think that he moves the needle for the Colorado Rockies. Again, I think if it was a different prospect, like a little bit of a higher tier prospect instead of Addison Barger, maybe that could be like a little bit more upside. I think you've seen what Addison Barger brings to an MLB roster right now, and I don't necessarily know if that's the way they go. But I do like the idea of Ryan McMahon, and I don't know what the return would be for the Colorado Rockies. Again, I think it might be somewhere between a 10, a 5, probably a 7 and a 10 prospect from the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, I had Alan Rodin as a 12, Josh Kasevich. I mean, again, it depends how teams value Addison Barger. I think there would be a few teams out there that would be willing to take a chance on the raw capabilities of Barger. If he does put it all together, this guy could be a 30-plus home run hitter. But again, big if does this guy put it all together. I just think if you're the Colorado Rockies, you're going to trade Ryan McMahon. You probably need an MLB ready talent. Is that Ernie Clement? That could be, again, more MLB ready, but not as high as upside as a guy like Addison Barger, and obviously is older as well. And then it kind of goes to other players around the Toronto Blue Jays. If you're going to trade for a guy like Ryan McMahon, you want to make your MLB team worse at that point, like a Will Wagner you could throw in there. But again, the Toronto Blue Jays love Will Wagner. How well is he viewed from other teams? I think that's one of those guys that is viewed a little bit higher within the Toronto Blue Jays system than compared to outside of the league. So it would take multiple prospects from the Toronto Blue Jays to get Ryan McMahon from the Colorado Rockies. But I think this could be an option if they don't get an Alex Bregman, they don't get a Pete Alonso. If the Colorado Rockies were willing to sign Ryan McMahon, that's a whole different discussion, obviously. But it could be, again, a team that Ross Atkins could look at to make this team a little bit better for 2025.
Yeah, Carter, and I don't hate the idea of Ernie Clement being a trade option for this club. I think that he had a great showing last season, even the past 2 years, to be honest with you. Showed defensive prowess, was a finalist in Gold Glove voting. I think he's a possibility, and I think when we look at trades, he is a guy that probably could come to mind a little bit more often when you're in these talks. Now, from the Blue Jays organization, I don't know the value of Ernie Clement right now within the club. I know that the value of Will Wagner is through the roof with this club. They love Will Wagner, and I think we're going to see a lot of them this season. As much as we don't necessarily love that, I think that if he needs to get pretty consistent playing time, if I want Will Wagner to be with this club, but we'll have to see. Again, those are our two trade options. Let us know what you guys think about them. If you have any other ones that you want to cover in the comments below, we'll maybe make a whole video on your guys' trades. We'll react to all your guys' trades. So leave a comment down below with your idea what could be a good idea. Me and Carter will sort of go over and give our takes maybe on a future episode. Carter, anything else before we sort of kick out of this one? We do have to get to a fan trade that came in regarding Vladimir Guerrero Jr. How does that one fit? But anything else before we get to that one?
Yeah, I got two quick things. Maybe instead of that Aston Barger piece, if you want to go a little bit farther down, like that guy you included in the Luis Robert Jr. trade, maybe Charles McAdoo does put it over the edge, a guy that does have that raw power as well. And before I wanted to do Ryan McMahon, I kind of wanted to go into Nolan Arenado a little bit. I don't love Arenado coming to the Toronto Blue Jays, but I do think that is more realistic. Until I learned that he is one of the teams that Toronto Blue Jays he's not going to go to. He has a no trade clause for the Toronto Blue Jays, not one of the teams he would be a part of. But I just wanted to kind of throw it over to you. Just what would you think if there was the possibility to land a guy like Nolan Arenado?
Well, to be honest with you, I've always had a little distaste for Nolan Arenado, and that just comes from the fact that Josh Donaldson is my favorite player to ever play the game, and there was competing, right? It was always who's at the time where Josh Donaldson was winning his MVP, and it was always, well, who's better? Who would you take? And so when people would take Nolan Arenado, it would put it'd be like a little shot to my gut there. But I like him as a player. I think he would fit really well. The no trade clause to Toronto is hilarious. Understandably, right? If maybe it's just not somewhere you want to be, and I will never judge a player based on where they or won't they go. And fair enough for Nolan Arenado, but I think he would be a great piece for this team.
Yeah, again, same thing. Definitely helps with that defensive positioning. He's still a very good defender. And then obviously provides a little bit more power at the plate. Can be a guy that can drive in 70, 80 RBIs. Drove in 71 RBIs last season. But again, it would have been nice to be able to scalp this guy from all the rumors that we've seen of him going to the Boston Red Sox. Boston Red Sox need a third baseman. I don't know why they're not in an Alex Bregman. Again, the reports have completely tampered off with the Bregman stuff. Maybe they still land Nolan Arenado. I just don't understand why you go out and get Walker Buehler and then you get Garrett Crochet. You add a ton to your starting rotation. And unless you get major steps from the prospects, they do have a bunch of top prospects that can work out for that baseball team. But you think that you might want to get a veteran third baseman, someone that has been an established third baseman in the league to kind of add to that batting order. But again, all of this helps the Toronto Blue Jays that they don't land a third baseman. But there is some fan trades, some mock trades that you guys have made as well that we want to get into. Again, I think there's one regarding Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that you have. I don't think those rumors are going to stop until this guy gets extended. If he ever does get extended, so a bunch more we do want to get into. We're going to get into your mock trades coming up.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. I talk about Game Time all the time because it's my favorite place to purchase tickets. They have this new feature called Game Time Picks. Attending NFL games is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together, and Game Time Picks could help you get to those games. Like I said, the Game Time Picks feature, getting tickets for live events even easier, filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. So you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I always talk about this. I use Game Time for when we went to Toronto, for when we went to New York to watch some baseball games, and for when I watched a Winnipeg Jets Vancouver Canucks game here at home. And I gave Carter the old text saying, "Hey, this is how much the tickets are." He said, "Great," and within 5 seconds, I had tickets. And so Game Time makes everything really, really easy. And I know what the price is because it's all upfront pricing. You know exactly what you're going to pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Lowest prices guaranteed. All right, dude. I was sort of searching the internet for some trades, and most of the time when I'm searching through what the internet has to say about the Toronto Blue Jays and trading players away, it's always like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And so whatever. I found one. I don't know. I'll get your feelings on this one. I'll say it to you. You tell me your thoughts, because again, I looked for like a solid hour trying to figure out what was on everybody's mind, but everything kept coming back to the same thing. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. What is this team going to do with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. if the Blue Jays are not very good by the deadline? Would they flip him? So here one goes. And of course, who is it to? The New York Mets, because they are a team that was so heavily in on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and wanted to wait for him next season and possibly sign him in free agency. So here's what the Toronto Blue Jays would be getting back from the New York Mets for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Starling Marte, Tyler McGill, utility player Jet Williams, second-ranked prospect in the Mets system. Right-handed pitcher Nolan McLean, 9th-ranked prospect in the Mets system, and infielder Marco Vargas, 13th-ranked prospect in the Mets system. That is a haul to get back. I will say that. But does it move the needle at all for you when it comes to Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Carter?
I don't like Starling Marte whatsoever, so you can pretty much just get this guy out of the trade. Jet Williams, very good prospect. Would like to see him, again, in the middle of the field, especially if you're not going to re-sign Bo Bichette. But in this scenario, obviously the Toronto Blue Jays are not very good again in 2025. And that's going to I think it's going to impact the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. extension talks. They do not get it done before spring training. Why would you kind of want to come back to a team that wasn't good in 2024? Again, if you're at that point in 2025, not a very good team in 2025, do you want to commit your prime years to a team that's probably going towards a rebuild? Maybe there's a little bit more validity to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. getting traded, whether it's to the New York Mets, whether it's traded to the Boston Red Sox that we heard earlier this offseason. But honestly, with the New York Mets, I think it's kind of what some people are doing with the San Diego Padres and Fernando Tatis. It's saying that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Blue Jays don't have a good year. Vladdy, the contract extension talks don't seem to be going into too positive of a direction. We have seen some positive feeds. We have seen some negative ones as well. The Toronto Blue Jays are a ton off. But it's the scenario where the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hasn't really gone in a positive direction with the Toronto Blue Jays, so why wouldn't he be traded? And it's kind of the same thing with the Padres. They need to get rid of some of their cap space. Fernando Tatis, one of those guys that has a major contract, why wouldn't he be traded? But if you're a Padres fan, you're probably like, there is no way in hell we're trading Fernando Tatis. We're Toronto Blue Jays fans, and we're on this fence. There is no way in hell that we would trade Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I even think that if the season goes bad, they are probably not trading Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They are going to try to extend this guy for an extended period of time. So for me, unless it's you get the MLB pipeline's number 2 prospect, number 15 prospect, it would have to be a mind-blowing offer for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I just think in my heart with the trade with Vladdy, it would absolutely rip me apart to see this guy in another uniform.
Carter, man, I can't imagine a trade this season with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I think this team wants him so badly. I think they are going to bend the knee when it comes to a contract eventually. They will pay him the money. But I do think that there is a little bit of validity to the Mets. I think the Mets are going to be trying to shop Vladimir Guerrero Jr. very hard, especially if this team doesn't have a successful season. So it all really comes down to, and we talked about this when we talked about the Bo Bichette episode, the Vladimir Guerrero Jr., what happens if, and it all depends on how this team does this season. Otherwise, we don't have much to talk about. If they have a bad year, I think we're headed in a very rough direction as Toronto Blue Jays fans. So we'll have to wait and see. These are all rumors. These are all our thoughts, our feelings, because trades can happen, and it's about some guy or some team that we didn't even have a clue was in. That's just how trades work. I mean, look at the other week when it was the whole Rantanen situation.
Oh, I thought you were talking about
and the Luka
NBA,
smokes,
the NBA stuff. We're not big NBA guys, but yeah, we even know that if Luka Doncic gets traded, Anthony Davis gets traded, that's a pretty big trade in the NBA. And some of the fan reactions to that is always something that I will enjoy, especially if it's not my favorite team being on the losing end of that trade. When Bryce Young, that trade happened, that was not a very fun couple months for me. But again, with the Toronto Blue Jays, it will kind of depend on how good they are this season. That's why the narrative for us this offseason was this might be the most important offseason in Toronto Blue Jays history. You have 2 major free agents, 2 faces of your franchise, 2 players that if they do play their careers out in Toronto may go down as some of the best players in Toronto Blue Jays history. So it is a major offseason. There's still hopefully more work to be done, whether it's through a trade. Trade rumors, like you said, are very fun because they kind of come out of the blue with a guy like Anthony Santander, who's like the Toronto Blue Jays for a very long time. Nobody expected Andres Gimenez to get traded when he did. That came out of absolutely nowhere. And we got our infield Dalton Varsho, where Ross Atkins obviously loves his defense. But again, it's all going to come down to how Bo Bichette produces, how Vladimir Guerrero Jr. produces, how other players on this team produce. And then obviously the bullpen has to be better, that we kind of went into on that Wednesday episode. So there is still a little bit up in the air, but we're going to learn very quickly as the season starts whether the Toronto Blue Jays will be competitive in 2025. Just want to say thank you guys for watching. The likes, comments, subscriptions, everything recently has been appreciated. With all the new people coming in, we have noticed that about 77% of you guys are not subscribed. Means a ton to us, helps the channel grow, helps get more perspectives, more viewership, obviously, for our podcast, and just the different perspectives. Where we have the Discord, we obviously have Instagram, all these different platforms that we want to see what you guys are thinking, how you view the Toronto Blue Jays in 2025, as it is such an important offseason. We want to know if you guys think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to be a playoff team. You think somehow they're going to get worse from last season? Maybe so a lot of people are saying they're going to go 81-81, just have the most midseason of all time. Whether your perspective is positive or negative, we want to hear it. Braden, before we get into the weekend, is there anything else you want to add up before we head out?
No, everybody have a great weekend. We're starting again 5 days a week, Monday to Friday here back on Locked On Blue Jays. We're going to have a blast, talk a lot of Blue Jays stuff. So again, if you guys have anything you want us to talk about, if there's something specific that, hey, you saw, you want us to cover, shoot us a message if it's on Twitter, Instagram, if it's in the comment section, whatever it may be, we'll definitely take a look at it. Just give us put a little flag on it or something, and we'll take a look. As always, like Carter said, we appreciate everything, all you guys watching, listening throughout this off season. It has been an absolute blast, and we're almost there, ladies and gentlemen. We're almost at pitchers and catchers reporting. What a time to be alive. Here we go. Let's go, Toronto Blue Jays.